Well, Alpesh is back. Alpesh Patel, CEO of Prifinium Partners, to take us through our paces. Good morning, Alpesh. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
Let's start with the FT then. And this is a plan coming out of the Commission, the European Commission, apparently to be announced September the 12th in José Manuel Barroso's State of the Union address. Will they go for it?
I think they won't go for control of 6,000 European banks, which is what the ECB wants. They want to have that centralised control to monitor all 6,000 banks within the Eurozone. However, what's interesting is that the Germans, who are of course the largest economy within the Eurozone, the finance minister has written to say it makes sense, but only for the 25 largest. So they don't have a problem with the principle, it's just the quantity of banks. I think it makes sense because you've got a lot of Mickey Mouse banks who've been dishing out cash like candy, which has turned into bad debt, which the rest of us are stuffed with. Now remember, I've said specifically Eurozone banks, because there is no way that you'd get control over British banks out of a Central European bank.
Isn't that the problem there, though? Because if this is not across the board and only with a handful, then it doesn't really work.
Well, you know, the issue isn't actually with the breadth of it. It's the fact that you need to be able to capture not actually the biggest. So the Germans have got it wrong here. The biggest ones do tend to have the best monitoring, the best observation by their central bank. It's actually the other way around. It should be the smallest ones, because once you aggregate those and the amount of money that they dish out, individually it's small sums of money, but in aggregate it's large sums. So actually the Germans and the ECB have both got it wrong, in my humble opinion. It should be the 80% of the smallest banks which need the most regulation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very valid point indeed. Let's move on. Let's talk about the China Daily. And again, a story that I was covering quite extensively yesterday on the World Business Report. Angela Merkel back in Beijing. Now, I say back because this was her second visit to China in 6 months. Now, I don't want to say smells of desperation, but it clearly highlights how important China is for, well, not only Germany, but for the Eurozone.
Well, there's two elements here. One is the Chinese have got deep pockets, of course, at the moment. They're one of the few countries in the world who can buy European debt and in size. And the great news for the rest of us in Europe is that they're willing and able to do this. That's one of the things that they've announced. Not just that. It's great for Germany because she's not just going under the European banner, she's actually going as a national representative. The Germans have signed trade deals which are all tied up beforehand, so it makes sense to have visited not just twice, but I'm surprised she's not there each month, given that you know it's a key client, it's a key customer.
Hang on,
of
there
the
is
EU.
a strike at Lufthansa at the moment, which might hold her up a bit.
The other thing is, if we do put it into context, China is less than half the size of the European economy. Let's remember, although it's the world's third largest economy, it is, or second largest depending on how you count Japan, it is an economy which is under half the size of the $14 trillion GDP that the EU produces. So, you know, Europe is the world's largest trading zone, equal in size to the US still.
Can I just quickly ask about this? Because okay, so and he's done this before. Hinted, yes, I might buy more bonds, and they're already holding a lot of European government debt, certainly from some of these troubled economies. Yeah. But he was rather candid too, especially for Chinese government yesterday. I mean, he spoke quite openly and actually almost pinpointed the likes of Greece, Italy, and Spain, and said, "Listen, get your finances in order." I mean, because they are worried though. The Chinese are very worried what's going on in the Eurozone.
When you're writing checks of this size, you get the right to make criticisms. Unfortunately, he didn't say anything which was which the Europeans don't already know, and perhaps that's not much of a surprise anyway, that he didn't say anything that we don't already know about what the problems are. What was good is that I thought it was a lot more positive than they've mentioned in the past. In the past, the Europeans have tended to jump the gun and say, oh, we'll go to the Chinese, and the Chinese say, well, actually, no, we're not just a blank checkbook. This time he's been quite a bit more positive and willing to help, and not least because the EU is one of the largest trading partners, and for a lot of the EU countries, China is certainly in the top 3 of trading nations. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's by no means parasitic. Of course, one of the things which will definitely not have been raised in this is anything to do with human rights whatsoever, because when you need money, your principles take a secondary seat.
They do indeed.
A very good lesson, perhaps, for the next man we're going to be talking about in the International Herald Tribune. as I said earlier, it was looking ahead to the Romney speech. I don't know, have you had a chance to digest
I've
what
had
Romney
a chance,
said?
indeed, to digest what he's been talking about, some of the issues.
OK, well, let's talk the pair of them, shall we? The package, because we're talking, they're promising 12 million jobs in 4 years, which sounds like rather a lot. And they're also talking about making the United States energy independent by the year 2020.
Yes, the energy promise is a little bit easier to deliver on because all you say is you'll open up the Alaskan shelf, and you know, it's been an issue for ages. I'd like to see him get past the environmentalists.
Yeah, there goes the Alaskan snow goose.
And if he does become president, get past Congress, even people in his own party, that isn't going to happen with Alaskan energy. That's one of the promises you can make before you take power. What interested me actually wasn't so much the issue about 12 million jobs, because again, it's bluster. If you could create jobs that easily, it would have been done anyway. It was the military issue. Now, it's often said that the Republicans want a big military and want to send it nowhere, and the Democrats want a small military and want to send it all over the world. And that was pretty much the essence of his speech. We're going to have such a big military, nobody would ever dare challenge us. And of course, that's a far more important issue for us in the rest of the world than actually what they do with 12 million domestic jobs or even on their energy dependency issues. What concerns us is what they're going to do with the military. It looks like he's going to ramp up the military.
Yeah, and you know, just on that jobs front, I mean, we talk about the jobs numbers every month out of the US. I mean, the US at the moment, in the last few years, has struggled to create, what, even around 1 million jobs every year, you know, let alone...
And the problem's been they've not been the solid, longer-term jobs. They've been quite temporary jobs as well. So I don't think he's actually got an answer for that, despite his private equity background, which is what he's been playing up. But isn't it interesting? Not a WASP, not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, because the religion thing came up. So we've gone... I mean, the Americans have gone from... I mean, look at how progressive they are. A country that had apartheid only 40 years ago, gone from a black president to a non-Protestant.
Okay, let's move on. I mean, let's just skip over the Barclays. A lot of that was said yesterday. Many thinking he is the right man for the job, but that's to be seen. Let's talk about the Bob Dylan royalty offering. I mean, almost this is like where investors are looking for, you know, an alternative. I mean, the fine wines they're investing in, art, and now music. Bob Dylan royalties.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The broader issue here is, and I see it within my own industry all the time, is that a lot of investors have not yet come to terms with the fact that returns are going to be a lot lower, and you're going to have to look in more exotic places in order to try and get better returns, of course, with risk associated with them. The funny thing about this is where you've got a debt issue with revenues coming, it's very similar to what they were doing, of course, with property before the credit crunch. You just put together a whole host of revenue sources, like dodgy mortgages. I'm not saying Bob Dylan's music's dodgy, quite the contrary. But it's only rated one notch above junk, which I think, you know, he'd find rather disappointing.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Alpesh, I know that you're a real Olympics enthusiast, and many of the papers featuring on the front page cover story, which I think is rather nice in the Times, but The Independent also has Sarah's story. I mean, she's a Paralympian beyond compare.
No, absolutely. You know, it coincided. I was fortunate enough to be at the opening ceremony. It coincided with the broadcast on the planet Mars of will.i.am. Now, look, why not the opening ceremony being broadcast? If you want to send across to another planet the best your species has to offer, then I have to tell you, the Paralympians were it. Yeah. That's the best that humanity has to offer.
Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Thank you.
We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.